Hey everyone, it is Kenny with RocketCityTactical.com, and what I wanted to talk about in this video is firearm selection. So selecting your very first firearm, it can be an overwhelming and intimidating process because there is just so much information to wade through in deciding, what is right for you. What is single action, what is double action, what is striker fired, what is hammer fired, what is trigger reset, what is bore axis, what is double stack, what is single stack magazine, what is all of this, and how does it matter to you, and hopefully I can answer some of those questions in this video. I will tell you, if you were considering carrying and buying a firearm and exercising your Second Amendment right, the first thing that you need to do is you need to seek out competent training. And I know that there are some people out there that will scoff and say, oh, well, I don't need that because I have former military training and military background, this and that and everything else. And while that is a tremendous foundation in terms of familiarity with firearms, it does not give you the knowledge that you need in terms of, your civil and criminal liabilities in a self-defense shooting and things of that nature. So it's a great foundation, but it's a foundation that you still need to build on in the self-defense world. So don't use that as an excuse and think that your military background and training is enough, because it's simply not. So to that end, I would very strongly recommend Bishop 30 Solutions and Noel Bishop here in Huntsville, Alabama. He's just a great guy with tremendous courses and a tremendous wealth of experience. Now, I want to follow that up by saying that I do not receive any type of paid promotion for any of this stuff. If I do promote a business or a firearm or ammunition or anything like that, it's because I genuinely believe in that individual, that person, that business, that firearm. I do not accept paid promotions in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And that was one of the things that I was adamant about when I started Rocket City Tactical, because I do not want to be beholden to anyone, and I don't want a dollar to form my opinion for me. I want to be able to say what I think, when I think, and I don't want to have any strings attached to my opinion. So please consider Noel Bishop and Bishop 30 Solutions. So once you've got training and education and you've armed yourself with knowledge, then you can arm yourself with brass. Now, the first thing that you need to do in that firearm selection process is you have got to determine what the purpose of that firearm is, what that firearm is going to do for you. Is it for self-protection to open carry, concealed carry? Is it for home protection? Are you trying to get into competition shooting? I mean, all of these things are going to make a difference in driving that purchase. So you have to understand the purpose of that firearm. So if you're looking for something that you can open carry, then you have some tremendous options out there on the market, like this Steyr M9A1, which has a 15+1 capacity, just a tremendous firearm. Alternatively, you have a 1911. Now, there's a reason that I'm showing you these two firearms, because this is another thing that you have to take into consideration, and that is upkeep and maintenance. This Steyr is a double stack magazine, which means the rounds are staggered in the magazine, which gives you higher capacity. So this firearm can hold 15+1 in the chamber, 16 rounds, where this firearm can only hold 10 because it is a single stack magazine. But this 1911 requires a lot more maintenance and upkeep than this Steyr does. The reason for that is the tolerances are so tight on the 1911 that any dirt, gunk, and buildup is going to impact the performance of the firearm. So you have to take that into consideration when you're thinking about a firearm and what you want to buy. How much maintenance and care do you want to put into that firearm? That makes a big difference in the firearm that you're going to purchase, because like I said, this 1911 requires a lot more cleaning, a lot more care. Where this firearm, you can run it longer without cleaning it, and it's still going to perform. So that's something that you need to take into consideration. Now, I do recommend cleaning your firearms consistently on a regular basis, because one day your life might depend on that firearm. So take care of that firearm, and that firearm is going to take care of you. Now, alternatively, you say, well, I don't want to open carry a firearm. I want a smaller firearm that's more concealable, and you have to understand the trade-off there. For a smaller firearm, you're going to get less capacity. So we have this Glock 43X, which is a tremendous concealed carry option, probably my personal favorite. The Glock 43X has a 10 round capacity, and it's just a tremendous little firearm. Alternatively, you have the M&P Shield. This one is chambered in 9mm, also a great little firearm. And then you have the Smith & Wesson Shield EZ. It's chambered in 380, and it's also a great little firearm. But you have to understand that there are going to be some trade-offs. The smaller firearms are more concealable, but they're going to carry less rounds. So you have to take that into consideration when you're considering what you want, what the purpose of that firearm is going to be. So understanding what the purpose is going to be for that firearm, what purpose it's going to serve, that's also going to kind of help you out with caliber selection. So you understand the purpose and say, okay, well, what I want is I want a smaller concealable firearm. Well, if you want a smaller concealable firearm, then I very strongly recommend that you go with a 9mm, because the 9mm in a compact and subcompact firearm, the recoil is just simply going to be more manageable. Now, the Shield, for example, you can get this in a 40 or a 45 ACP, but the recoil is going to be a lot greater with those higher caliber rounds, and the capacity is going to be less. So you have to take that into consideration. If you're going to go concealed carry, I would really recommend that you go with a 9mm or even this 380, the EZ Shield. So you have to take that into consideration. Now, if you want a larger full-size duty firearm, then you have the option, 40 caliber, 45 ACP. It's going to run better in these full-size firearms. The recoil is going to be a lot more manageable, and you're still going to have decent capacity. So once you understand the purpose, it'll help you with that caliber selection. And just think recoil management, right? If I want a more compact firearm, I really need to consider getting a lower caliber round for recoil management. So take that into consideration. The next thing that you probably want to think about is, do you want a revolver, or do you want something that is magazine fed? And I know a lot of people are probably sitting there going, that's not even something to think about. Of course, I want the capacity of a magazine fed firearm, but you have to think in terms of reliability, and you also have to think in terms of physical limitations. So my father-in-law, for example, he had really bad rheumatoid arthritis in his hands, and he simply could not rack the slide on a firearm. So for him, it was the trusty old revolver. It was easy for him to handle. He didn't have to rack the slide. All he had to do was pull the hammer back, and he was good. He was ready to go. Now, he did later move on to the Shield EZ for the greater capacity, and Shield EZ is easy to rack, easy to load. That's what they market it as. But you need to take things like that into consideration when you're making that firearm purchase. And you also need to take into consideration that these revolvers are going to be a bit heavier than your polymer frame striker fired pistols. So that's another thing that you need to think about when you're talking about, revolver or magazine fed. There's going to be trade-offs for just about everything. So another thing that I think people, especially new shooters, have some difficulty understanding, that I kind of wanted to try to hammer out as simply as possible, is single action or double action. So the easiest way for me to explain it is a single action trigger only performs a single action. A good example of that is going to be my Colt 1911. If the hammer is down and I pull this trigger, it does absolutely nothing. This trigger is single action only. So this hammer has to be cocked for this trigger to function. It only performs one single action of releasing that hammer. That's it. Single action only. Alternatively, I have this CZ75 Compact, which is a single action and double action. So I have a double action pull, which cocks the hammer and releases the hammer. Or I have the single action pull, where I'm simply releasing the hammer. Single action, double action. You have double action only firearms, you have single action only firearms, and you have firearms that are single and double action. But understand that the single action and double action refers to the action of the trigger. If the trigger is only performing one action, releasing the hammer or the striker, it is single action. If it is performing two actions, cocking and releasing the hammer or the striker, then it is double action. And do not assume that if it has a hammer, that it is double action or single action, right? Don't make the assumption. But that's the difference between single action and double action. And ultimately, I think that comes down to personal preference. Some people just like a heavy double action pull. Some people prefer the light, crisp single action pull. The more you shoot and the more you experience firearms, you'll start to develop your own preferences, just like you hear people talk about trigger reset, trigger reset, trigger reset. It has a short reset, has a short reset, short reset. So one example of this is my Canik TP9 SF Elite. So the reset on this trigger is phenomenal. It's audible, it's tactile. The reset is how far that trigger travels before it's ready to fire again. I like an audible and tactile reset. And this is a great example of an audible and tactile reset, just a great trigger. So how much does the reset really matter? To a newer shooter, it's probably not gonna matter much. But over time, you'll develop a preference and you'll say, okay, well, I like this trigger because the reset's shorter. And ultimately, the trigger reset is gonna be more applicable to competition shooting than it is in the self-defense world. But for those of you that don't understand trigger reset, that's trigger reset. So the last thing that you really want to take into consideration is the overall ergonomics, right? Just make sure that before you purchase a gun that you handle that gun and that gun feels comfortable in your hand. Typically you can go to any range and go to the range counter and they have firearms for rent. If you're interested in a firearm, see if they have it available for rent so you can shoot it first before you make that purchase. And, you know, you also have to really take into consideration budgetary constraints. So you have that age-old adage that, you know, you get what you pay for. But having said that, you know, you can absolutely find a firearm that meets your budget and your needs. You just have to understand what your purpose, what your needs are, and what your budget is. And there is a firearm that will more than likely fit your budget. For example, you have this glorious firearm right here. Yeah, it's the High Point Yeet Cannon G1. Look, ergonomically, it is one of the most horrible, uncomfortable firearms I've ever shot in my life. Budget-wise, it's dirt cheap. There are so many things that I absolutely do not like about this gun, but what I will tell you is that their support is hands down one of the best support I've ever dealt with. There is a lifetime, no questions asked warranty on these firearms. It doesn't matter what you do, you can send it back and they'll fix it or replace it. but price doesn't always mean quality, and that goes both ways. Would I recommend a yeet cannon? Not particularly. I think you can get a Taurus G2 or a Taurus G2C for not much more, and to me, it's a much better firearm. But you also have to work within your budget, and being armed, quite frankly, is better than being unarmed. So if a high point is all you can afford, then a high point is all you can afford. But understand the purpose, understand, what you need out of that firearm, and try to find a budget that fits your needs. And like I said, generally speaking, you get what you pay for, but high price firearms don't always translate into performance, and low price firearms doesn't always translate into trash. So, I mean, try them out, shoot them, see what works for you. Anyway, guys, again, it's Kenny with RocketCityTactical.com. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope I was able to answer some of those questions and get some of those things worked out. If you like the content and you like the video, please give us a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, click that bell so you get notifications. Like I said earlier in the video, I do not take paid promotions. Everything comes out of my pocket. So if you guys want to help and support me, please consider jumping over to RocketCityTactical.com and buying a t-shirt. A t-shirt purchase goes a long way in helping me continue to make these videos and keep doing what I'm doing. Anyway, guys, I really hope it helped. Stay frosty, keep shooting, and have a great day.
Hey everyone, it's Kenny with RocketCityTactical.com, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for watching this video and thank you for all of your support. Rocket City Tactical is a non-profit community and information resource for all things tactical. So please jump over to RocketCityTactical.com and consider becoming a member. Membership is free and gives you the opportunity to contribute to our site content and even win some pretty cool stuff. We just recently gave away a Glock 43 to one of our members. If you guys are feeling froggy because we are a non-profit, please consider buying a t-shirt from the Rocket City Tactical store. Your purchase goes a long way in helping us continue what we do and keep providing this service. It keeps our website up and it helps us make these videos. Anyway, stay frosty, guys, and keep shooting.